late breaking news today around this phenomenally interesting story in Minnesota where a bunch of people hoodwinked the government out of $1 billion, more than the state of Minnesota spends on law enforcement. $1 billion in these scams. They basically, during COVID and since, in programs for housing and for treatment of children and nutrition, they made up clients and they collected money from the government. And there's allegations that they did stuff with it for personal use, but also there's some allegations they used it to send back to Somalia, and it's hit the governor of the state, who's running for an unprecedented third 4-year term. It's hit the Somali community in Minnesota, and it's such an outrage what was done that the New York Times wrote a story that read like it was from the American Spectator. It was just a scathing indictment of the Democrats in Minnesota who failed to oversee this. So Scott Bessent just announced this moments ago. At my direction, the U.S. Treasury is investigating allegations that under the feckless mismanagement of the Biden administration and Governor Tim Walz, hardworking Minnesotans' tax dollars may have been diverted to the terrorist organization Al-Shabaab. Thanks to the leadership of the president, we are acting fast to ensure Americans' taxes are not funding acts of global terror. We'll share our findings as our investigation continues. And it's Chris Rufo whose reporting says that this money was diverted overseas to fund terrorism. I have not seen like the firmest of evidence of that, but just the scam on the taxpayers. If you want to read my full view of this, you can go to the Daily Mail, where my new column is on this matter. Will be posted soon. Here's Caroline Levitt talking about this at the briefing today. This is what number is this, Sam? This is
number 13.
Number 13, please. Thank you.
I'll tell you what does not add to our nation's character and integrity is refugees who come here under the alleged plight of asylum and fleeing persecution, and then come to the United States to abuse our system and rip off American taxpayers. And as I pointed out, the New York Times, to their credit, it was about 6 months too late, but they did write about how Somali immigrants in Minnesota have been ripping off American taxpayers. In fact, 86 people have been charged in a rampant and widespread fraud scheme spanning multiple programs in Minnesota. Of those 86, 78 of those people are Somali, 91% of them charged. So far, 59 of those people have been convicted for their roles in fraud plots that have stolen $1 billion from taxpayers. In one scheme, and this is egregious, a nonprofit and its affiliates with these Somali migrants claimed to have fed tens of thousands of American children during the pandemic. They were reimbursed for those meals by taxpayers. However, federal prosecutors found that almost all of those meals were never even delivered to hungry children. In fact, those organizations' leaders spent the money on houses, luxury cars, and real estate in Turkey and Kenya. Another scheme involved hundreds of organizations who were reimbursed for services that were supposed to help people at risk of homelessness. Once again, those services were never provided. All of this has happened under Democrat leadership in a Democrat-run state, where these refugees, these migrants are coming to the United States. They are abusing our system. They are draining our resources that should be going to law-abiding, taxpayer-funded, tax-paying Americans. And this president is not going to put up with it anymore.
Lyndsay, if all news stories come in the three sizes people like most, small, medium, and large, what size is this story?
I think it's small, only because, this seems like a one-off. Although I will say, we saw during COVID that there were tens of billions of dollars of fraud from PPP checks and people taking advantage of a system being stood up so quickly, and there were loopholes. And so I think there should be some kind of investigation, and other states should figure out how to make sure that similar things aren't happening in their state. But I think for it to be a broad sweeping kind of attachment to one group of people because they all engage in this, fraud scheme isn't fair. Now, I think it has the legs to become a bigger story if it keeps getting pressed because the administration keeps leaning into attacking this group of people specifically. And that's where stories that shouldn't have legs like this, I feel like, do, because it gets taken out of context, opposed to doing a review and, kind of cleaning house and figuring out how to improve systems so stuff like this doesn't happen and taxpayer dollars aren't taken advantage of. The administration goes after a group of people and then makes it about them more than the issue itself.
Right. Now, although Robby and I are not technically twin brothers of different mothers, I usually can read his poker face, and he's so polite. I think he disagrees with you that it's small, but he raised almost imperceptibly. He just raised one eyebrow. Which here's how I interpreted Robby's reaction to your saying it was small. Maybe I'm wrong. Robby, you think this is a bigger story, don't you?
Yeah, I'm from the Tucker Carlson school of over-the-top facial reactions.
Yeah.
I think this is at least a medium story, although,
Yeah.
of course, I agree we shouldn't smear an entire community or group of people. Maybe this has to do with our discussion over who is immigrating to this country and what that policy should be. I'm really more interested in what this has to say about democratic governance and Tim Walz's governance in particular, which seems, frankly, catastrophic to me. This was a massive fraud that went on under his watch that he's kind of tried to explain away. He's had some quotes to me that are just devastating, that along the lines of, well, it was an emergency, so we tried to be generous. Well, it's generous with other people's money. It's generous with taxpayers' money. And the whole system collapses. People's support, liberals should be more fearful of this. The American people's support for welfare for their neighbors and their friends is very generous, but it all collapses when you get the sense that people are ripping everybody else off and they're looting the commons, which is definitely, again, not about one group in particular, just welfare fraud being bad.
Yep.
I think not to monologue, but I also think it speaks again to Kamala Harris's bad political judgment or bad luck, that this was the person, and albeit during a very shortened vetting process, this was the person she wanted to share a ticket with. This would have been a massive scandal under a Kamala Harris administration, certainly, if she had won and he had been the VP.
I had those same two thoughts about a scandal if they'd won, but also I remember when Bill Clinton spoke at Barack Obama's convention in 2008, and they dubbed him the explainer in chief. That he could explain stuff really well. Tim Walz is whatever the opposite of that is. He's the worst explainer I've ever seen. When there's anything complicated, like when he had controversies over his military record, etc., he's just a horrible explainer of anything difficult. It's quite odd. I got an email from one of you, from a lady who said her husband doesn't care about clothes normally, but she bought him the Cozy Earth pants. He loved them so much. He normally doesn't comment on any clothes because he's like me, basically not interested in clothes. Or shopping. But he said, hey, can I get a second pair of these? So she bought him a second pair. And this part I'm making up, they renewed their marriage vows now. But she's very happy and he's very happy. You can give the gift of luxury to everybody on your holiday list with Cozy Earth. Crazy now, a sale, 40% off sale. Go to CozyEarth.com. Use the promo code TWOWAY for an extraordinary 40% off. That's the Cozy Earth bamboo sheets, the towels, the bubble cuddle blanket, all the pants you could possibly wear. Head to CozyEarth.com. Again, you can get 40% off if you order by December 12th, guaranteed for Christmas delivery. Give the gift of comfort that lasts beyond the holidays and carries into a cozy 2026. Again, CozyEarth.com, promo code TWOWAY. They say that something that's easy is like a walk in the park. Well, easier than a walk in the park, hit the subscribe button, be part of the Two-Way community, never miss an episode, be part of our conversations. Thank you for your service to America. And don't forget, you can now listen to the Morning Meeting and Two-Way Tonight on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts.